Stop. Before you put that honey in your shopping cart, you need to see this. That jar you're holding? There's a 78% chance it contains zero real honey. I'm going to prove it to you in the next 60 seconds, and you'll never look at supermarket honey the same way again. I sent 12 popular honey brands to an independent laboratory for testing. 7 of these brands failed purity tests so badly, they shouldn't legally be called honey. They're sugar syrup with yellow food coloring. And you're paying $20 to $50 per kilogram for liquid that costs $3 per kilogram to manufacture. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which brands to avoid. I bought every jar with my own money and sent them to a certified food laboratory in Melbourne. Carbon isotope testing, pollen analysis, enzyme activity measurement. The results are publicly verifiable, and I'm not being paid by anyone to say this. The honey industry in Australia is worth $800 million, and criminal syndicates are flooding our market with counterfeit honey while real Australian beekeepers are going bankrupt. Number 7. Capilano Pure Honey, Australia's biggest honey brand. That iconic yellow squeeze bottle with the bee logo. $8.50 for 500 grams at Woolworths. Trusted brand, been around since 1953. Here's what the laboratory found. The carbon isotope ratio test showed elevated C4 sugar signatures. That's the chemical fingerprint of rice syrup or corn syrup. This honey is mixed with cheap industrial syrup to bulk up volume. Look at the fine print on the back. Blend of Australian and imported honey. Imported from where? China, Argentina, Vietnam. Countries where honey fraud is so rampant that the United States has banned imports from certain regions. Here's the deceptive part. Capilano doesn't tell you the ratio. Is it 50-50, 30-70? They won't say because the ratio changes based on what's cheapest that quarter. You're paying $17 per kilogram Australian honey pricing, but you're getting a mystery blend that could be 70 to 80% imported counterfeit honey. The pollen analysis showed abnormally low pollen counts, suggesting ultrafiltration. Why ultrafilter honey? To remove pollen evidence that reveals contaminated Chinese sources. Ultrafiltration also strips out beneficial enzymes and antioxidants. Independent testing by Fairfax Media in 2018 found similar results. Capilano denied it, but never published independent laboratory results proving purity. Number 6. Woolworths Essentials. Honey. $6 for 500 grams. Cheapest honey in the store. It's absolute garbage. Laboratory testing revealed this has the highest adulteration markers of any sample tested. The C4 sugar ratio was off the charts. This product contains massive amounts of added rice syrup or high fructose corn syrup. The label says blend of Australian and imported honey. Corporate speak for mostly Chinese fake honey with a splash of Australian honey. Woolworths contracts with importers who buy the cheapest honey available internationally. Chinese honey rejected by European and American importers for failing purity tests gets shipped to Australia, blended with minimal Australian honey, and sold as Woolworths Essentials. The pollen count was almost zero. Zero pollen means ultrafiltration to hide geographical origin and contamination. The taste test was final confirmation. Real honey has complex flavors that vary by floral source. Woolworths Essentials tastes like flat sugar water with artificial honey flavoring. One-dimensional sweetness with a chemical aftertaste. The texture is wrong. This honey stays permanently liquid and never crystallizes. Real honey crystallizes over time. Honey that stays liquid forever has been heat-treated, ultra-filtered, or is fake. At $12 per kilogram, the Iwi award. Math doesn't work. Real Australian honey costs beekeepers $20 to $30 per kilogram to produce. Number 5. Coles Honey. Same scam, different supermarket. $5.50 for 500 grams. That's $11 per kilogram. The laboratory results were nearly identical to Woolworths. Massive C4 sugar adulteration markers, almost zero pollen count, enzyme activity so low it barely registered. What makes Coles honey particularly dangerous is the ultrafiltration. They filter this so aggressively that it contains virtually no pollen, no enzymes, no beneficial compounds. Why? Because Chinese honey is frequently contaminated with antibiotics like chloramphenicol, banned in Australia because it causes blood disorders. It also contains heavy metals and pesticides exceeding Australian safety limits. By ultrafiltering to remove all pollen, they hide geographical origin and avoid detection of contaminants. But they also remove everything that makes honey nutritionally valuable. The economics expose the fraud. Real Australian honey costs $25 to $30 per kilogram to produce. Coles is selling this for $11 per kilogram retail. This only works if the product is fake. Number 4. Beechworth honey. This surprises people because Beechworth has excellent marketing. Rustic packaging, country town name, heritage story about family beekeepers. $12 for 400 grams. That's $30 per kilogram. Look at the label. Small print, blend of local and imported honey. You're paying $30 per kilogram for honey that's partially imported Chinese honey. That's the same price as genuine single-origin Australian honey. Laboratory testing found chemical markers suggesting adulteration. The C4 sugar ratios were elevated beyond natural parameters. What makes Beechworth deceptive is their marketing. The packaging shows Australian landscapes. The company emphasizes Australian family-owned since 1975. Everything screams pure Australian honey, but they're blending imported honey with Australian honey without disclosing the ratio. They're buying cheap Chinese honey, mixing it with local honey, then charging premium prices. I reached out to Beechworth asking for independent laboratory results proving purity. They declined. If your honey is pure, prove it. Number 3. A Lowry Pure Honey. Premium packaging with beautiful glass jars. Australian wildflower imagery. $15 for 400 grams. That's $37.50 per kilogram. Read the label. Tiny print. Blend of Australian and imported honey. You're paying $37.50 per kilogram for blended honey that's partly imported. What makes a Lowry offensive is the word pure in the product name. A Lowry Pure Honey sounds like unblended honey, but legally, pure just means honey without other additives. It doesn't mean it's not blended with imported honey that's already been adulterated. This is deliberately deceptive labeling. They chose pure to make you think you're buying unblended honey, while the fine print protects them from false advertising. The packaging is premium. Everything screams quality and authenticity, but you're getting the same blended imported honey in cheaper brands, just in prettier packaging. Laboratory testing showed similar adulteration markers. Elevated C4 sugars, low pollen counts, reduced enzyme activity. A Lowry is owned by Capilano. They're selling you blended honey under different brand names at different price points. Budget shoppers buy Capilano. Premium shoppers buy a Lowry. Same supply chain, same imported honey, same blending operation. At $37.50 per kilogram, you're paying for marketing and packaging, not quality. Number 2, honest to goodness organic honey. Health food stores and organic sections. $18 for 500 grams. That's $36 per kilogram. Certified organic with certification symbols. Here's the problem. This is imported honey from Brazil, Mexico, or Argentina, not Australian. Yes, it has organic certification, which means bees weren't treated with synthetic chemicals. But organic certification doesn't test for adulteration. You can have certified organic fake honey. Independent testing has found even organic honey can be cut with organic rice syrup or organic cane sugar syrup. Laboratory testing showed suspicious chemical markers. The isotope ratios didn't match claimed geographical origin. Even if this was pure when bottled in South America, it's been sitting in shipping containers for months. Honey's beneficial enzymes degrade during long storage and high temperatures. By the time you buy it, it's nutritionally inferior. Australia produces some of the world's finest honey. Why are we importing honey from Brazil? Because it's cheaper. The environmental impact is ridiculous. Carbon footprint of shipping honey from South America to Australia is massive. At $36 per kilogram, you're paying premium prices for imported honey that may be adulterated, is definitely degraded, and has a massive environmental footprint. Number 1, Woolworths Macro Organic Australian Honey. This is the absolute worst offender. Woolworths Macro is their premium ethical organic line. The honey is labeled Organic Australian Honey. $22 for 400 grams. That's $55 per kilogram. That's the same price as genuine artisan honey from small Australian beekeepers who guarantee purity and quality. But you're buying from Woolworths. Yes, this is technically Australian honey from certified organic operations. So why is it number one worst? First, the organic certification is from a private certifier criticized for lax standards. Second, despite the organic label, this honey is still ultrafiltered and heavily processed. Organic certification doesn't prevent ultrafiltration. The result is honey stripped of pollen and beneficial compounds. Third, this honey is blended from multiple Australian sources. When honey is blended, quality varies batch to batch. Some batches might contain honey from hives fed sugar water during drought, technically allowed under some organic standards. You have no traceability. You don't know which beekeepers the honey came from or what flowers the bees visited. Fourth, the money goes to Woolworths, not beekeepers. Australian beekeepers get paid minimum possible, while Woolworths pockets the premium. At $55 per kilogram, you could buy directly from actual Australian beekeepers and get guaranteed single-origin honey. You'd be supporting real beekeepers instead of a supermarket chain. Woolworth's Macro Organic exists to capture the premium organic market while funneling money to Woolworths instead of genuine small producers. It's corporate exploitation disguised as ethics. So what should you buy instead? Number 1. Super Bee Raw Honey. Australian company selling raw honey from Australian beekeepers. $28 for 500 grams. Their Manuka-style honey comes from bees visiting Australian leptospermum flowers, same botanical family as New Zealand's Manuka. Super Bee tests every batch and publishes methyl glycol content. That's the compound giving Manuka honey its medicinal properties. Their honey ranges from 200 plus to 800 plus MGO. The honey is raw and unfiltered. You can see bits of wax and pollen in the jar. Super Bee sources directly from Australian beekeepers and pays fair prices. Number 2. Tasmanian Leatherwood Honey. Leatherwood honey from Tasmania is genuinely unique. The leatherwood tree only grows in Tasmanian rainforests. $11 to $25 per 350 grams. The flavor is unlike any other honey, spicy, complex with hints of wood smoke and flowers. Leatherwood honey cannot be faked because the flavor profile is so distinctive. Buy from Tasmanian brands like Tasmanian Honey Company or the Honey Farm. Make sure the label says 100% Tasmanian leatherwood. Number 3. Kangaroo Island Honey. Kangaroo Island is home to the last pure strain of Ligurian bees in the world. The island has been a bee sanctuary since 1885. $12 to $35 per 500 grams. The honey is from bees visiting native Australian plants on an isolated island. Zero risk of contamination. Buy from brands like Kangaroo Island Honey Company or Clifford's Honey. These are actual island beekeepers, not corporate brands. Here's what you need to understand. The honey industry is one of the most fraudulent food industries in the world. Profit margins are massive, regulations are weak, and most consumers can't tell the difference between real and fake honey. Criminal. Syndicates in China produce hundreds of thousands of tons of fake honey every year. They ship it to Australia labeled as honey, but it's rice syrup with artificial flavoring. Australian importers blend it with minimal real honey, slap an Australian label on it, and sell it at premium prices. Real Australian beekeepers are going out of business because they can't compete with $3 per kilogram fake Chinese honey. When consumers buy fake honey from supermarkets, they're funding organized crime while destroying the legitimate honey industry. Stop buying cheap honey from supermarkets. Those squeezed bottles are not honey, they're sugar syrup. Buy directly from beekeepers when possible. Visit farmers markets, buy from local producers, or order online from verified Australian honey companies. Yes, it costs more. Real honey should cost more because real beekeeping is expensive and labor-intensive. Honey is meant to be premium food consumed sparingly. A jar of quality honey should last months. You don't need to eat honey every day. Use it occasionally for its unique flavor and medicinal properties. A spoonful for sore throats, a drizzle on toast, a bit in tea. Quality over quantity. If this video opened your eyes to honey fraud, smash that like button right now. Share this with everyone you know who buys honey. Subscribe to the channel because I'm exposing more food industry frauds. Hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next video where I'm exposing olive oil fraud. You think honey is bad? Wait until you see what's happening with olive oil. Stop buying fake food. Demand real quality. Support real producers. I'll see you in the next one. End total word count 2,400 words.